Did you know that the Gucci brand that we know today started as a street shop? The fashion name is attributed to mostly the affluent, and as of today, it is valued at $22.6 billion. You would naturally expect the owner to be from old money, but nothing can be further from the truth, as it was started by an underprivileged Italian man whose family had never known wealth of any kind. Unbelievable as that may sound, it's the truth. Now that's not even the best part. Gucci, since its debut in the fashion world, has been riddled with family feuds, battle for supremacy, and even betrayal. How did this fashion brand come to be, and what has become of it today? Let's find out. But before we go any further, it's important to say thank you to Sky is the Limit for sponsoring this video. Chapter 1. The Lowly Beginning. Gucci was born in Florence, Italy, into a small, impoverished family. His father owned a straw hat shop with which he sustained his family. The business struggled, and as a result, money was tight. The Gucci family lived from hand to mouth and had no way of knowing that the family's name would one day be associated with opulence and luxury. When Gucci was old enough, he started helping his family in the straw hat shop, and this he did until he was 18 years old. At this time, he decided he wanted more out of life. He knew that if he continued in Italy, he would have to take over the straw shop, which was different from his dreams. Instead of settling for what life had presented him, he packed his bag and headed to London. When he got there, he looked around for a job, but because he never had a formal education, he settled for the job of a bellboy at Savoy Hotel. Gucci's job description included carrying luggage for the hotel's guests and patrons. The hotel catered to aristocrats and well-to-do patrons, so what this meant was that he got to see and handle their expensive luggage. He was fascinated, to say the least. That was when he started conceiving the idea of owning and selling luxurious leather travel bags to the people who could afford them. His dreams were beautiful and valid, but there was a tiny problem. He had no money to kickstart his business. He was yet to be safe enough to give life to his dreams. After a while, he left his job at Savoy Hotel and got another job at a train company, where again, he was helping passengers carry their luggage that was made of durable and expensive leather. It was as though the universe had planned for him to eventually deal in leather material. During World War I, he began working at a company that specialized in making leather goods. He worked until he saved enough to start his own company. Chapter 2. The Birth of Gucci. In 1921, Gucci, at the age of 40, officially started his company in his home in Italy. He opened a shop where he sold leather goods, including bags and shoes. His customers were high-end patrons, so he ensured to only sell quality items. At first, he was importing, but as time went by, his customer base started requesting handmade leather goods. With that, Gucci explored more hands to service the orders that kept pouring in. However, things didn't go according to plan. In the subsequent months, he started incurring losses that threatened to swallow the business. That period would have marked the end of Gucci's leather outfit, but his son-in-law came to the rescue. He lent him some money, and the company was back on its feet in no time. Being a visionary businessman, Gucci knew his days on Earth were numbered, and he would hate to see his business end with him. So he decided it was time to bring his children in. And that was exactly what he did. He gave his 3 sons, Rodolfo, Aldo, and Vasco, some shares in the company. Once he did this, he encouraged them to contribute to the business and not just live as kids with rich fathers. Before we move on to the next chapter, how well do you love sneakers? If you do love sneakers and would like to get some really nice kicks and other fashion items, then head on to Sky is the Limit. It's an online fashion store where you'll get all your desired fashion items at affordable prices. You will find a straight link to the store in the description, and if you have done that, let's move on with our story. Chapter 3. Gucci to the World. Just like his dream, his children took so much interest in his business, and before he knew what was going on, they started hounding him to open another branch in other parts of Italy. It is worthy of note at this point that until his children's suggestion, it had never crossed Gucci's mind to expand or go outside Florence. One could hardly blame him. The company was doing well, and the idea of opening other branches elsewhere seemed a little bit over the top. But his sons had set their minds on changing their father's perspective. In the end, they won, and they opened another branch in Rome.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Shortly after, the World War II started. It was a tough time for most business owners, but Gucci had a different experience. The soldiers found satisfaction in buying leather handbags and sending them to their wives and mistresses. So, while other companies had to fold up and desert their businesses, Gucci was thriving and smiling to the bank. The war favored Gucci so much that by the end of 1950, the company had amassed enough resources to open another store in Milan. Life was good, money rolled in, and Gucci kept expanding. In 1953, Rodolfo, Aldo, and Vasco saw how well their product was growing in Italy and decided it was time to penetrate the American market. They flew to New York to secure their first American store. It was a successful trip, but sadly, their father died of a heart attack 2 weeks later. Chapter 3. Family Feud. After the death of Guccio Gucci, the business automatically passed on to his children. This was customary and expected, but one person didn't agree. Her daughter, Grilmata, was left with nothing, and her brothers refused to let her have any share of what was passed to them. Grilmata would not have it, so she sued them. Her pain was quite understandable. More than being a rightful daughter who was deserving of a share of her father's business, it was her husband who lent Gucci the money that prevented the company from going bankrupt. She couldn't bear that their money was good enough to be borrowed, but they were insignificant to be left any property. The legal tussle lasted a while, but unfortunately, Grimalda lost the case. And that was just the beginning of many court battles to be fought. In 1974, Vasco passed away, and his share went to his wife. The two other brothers didn't want an outsider in their business, so they found a way to buy the shares from Vasco's wife and added it to theirs. The two brothers were business-centric and ran the business successfully. After a while, they entered the Asian market and opened a store in Hong Kong. They did not allow their success to blind them from doing what had to be done. Instead of splurging the money, they reinvested their profits and continued to expand. In 1975, Gucci, in addition to the luxurious bags and shoes they were known for, started their luxurious fragrance line. Not only that, Gucci started producing other fashion accessories like belts, sunglasses, purses, wallets, and other dainty items. This added collection, however, was just like the bags and shoes. They were made for the elite and high-end customers. Chapter 4. The End of Gucci. There is a saying that the first generation creates, the second expands, while the third destroys. This saying holds for the Gucci family. Aldo and Rodolfo had children who they passed their stakes on to. Aldo had 3 children, Paolo, Giorgio, and Roberto, while Rodolfo had only one child whose name was Mauricio. Aldo gave his children some stake from his shares, but they wanted it all. Mauricio, on the other hand, was at a loggerhead with his father because of his choice of wife. Rodolfo was against Patrizia Reggian, the woman Mauricio was courting at the time. He disliked her because she was a social climber, but Mauricio was too smitten to see reasons with his father. In 1983, Rodolfo died and his shares, all 50%, went to his only son, Mauricio. With half of the share, he was an equal partner in Gucci, while Aldo and his 3 sons had to manage the other 50%. Now, you would expect these cousins to be united and work towards the advancement of their grandfather's business, but the exact opposite was the case. They were constantly at each other's throats. In case you are curious, one of the reasons for their animosity was the large share that Mauricio held. According to Aldo's children, they felt their father deserved more, while Mauricio was undeserving of the fortune that had come his way. At some point, Gucci gave out its license to departmental stores. This meant that anyone could now purchase Gucci products, but it was no longer exclusive to only the rich and elite. Mauricio wanted to preserve that legacy of being a luxurious brand that was only accessible to a certain class of people. So he called in the license, which led to the loss of $100 million. Also, he stopped the production of accessories like belts, glasses, wallets, and other small items. The idea behind this step was also to ensure only the affluent could afford Gucci products like bags and shoes. While all this was going on, Paolo, Aldo's son, was being a black sheep. He even at some point ensured that his father was tried and sentenced to a year in prison for tax evasion. Paolo also wanted to be the designer of Gucci products, but no one loved his designs. This made him lash out by starting his own fashion business, which he called Paolo Gucci. His family was against him using the name, so Paolo embarked on a court battle that cost him $8 million. In 1988, Mauricio convinced his family members to sell their shares, and with anybody who could check him gone, he took total control of the business. He also approached an investor called InvestCorp, who provided the money he needed to stay afloat after his many expansions. In 1989, he hired Dawn Mello as chief executive assistant and designer. With her expertise, she designed some really profitable items and brought back some of Gucci's earliest designs. One thing she did was to reduce Gucci's items from 22,000 to just 7,000. Another thing he did was to reduce Gucci's stores from 1,000 to 180 in their most profitable areas. After a while, Mauricio started making some drastic decisions that were bleeding out the company. He wanted to give Gucci a complete facelift while still retaining its affluent patrons. One of the ways he planned to do this was to change the logo that everyone had come to love. InvestCorp would not allow this, so in 1993, they found a way to buy Mauricio's 50% shares from him. He was technically ousted from his company. It was also at this time that he started to have issues with his wife. They separated in 1993 and finalized their divorce in 1994. The divorce was a messy one, especially as Patrizia became a clingy wife who began stalking her ex-husband to keep him from remarrying or going out with someone else. This creepy behavior continued until 1995, when Mauricio was killed by a gunman. At first, no one could trace his killers because he had managed to amass enough enemies to last him a lifetime. In the end, his killer was apprehended, and it was no other person than Patrizia, his ex-wife. At this time, no one from the Gucci family was still in Gucci. Everyone had sold their shares, either voluntarily or otherwise. Chapter 5. New Era. After the death of Mauricio, InvestCorp hired a new designer by the name of Tom Ford. He brought back the classic logo that Mauricio had scrapped. Tom also made designs that focused on the younger generation while still keeping their items elegant and luxurious. In 1995, a CEO named Domenico was employed. He collaborated with Tom Ford, and in the space of 1 year, they were able to double the profit of Gucci from $263 million to $500 million. Gucci faced a lot of battles too, but it survived them all. Notable among them was when they faced the risk of being taken over by Arnault Bernard, the owner of LVMH, popularly called Wolf in Cashmere. The company fought back, and instead of being trampled upon, Gucci took over some businesses like Balenciaga, Stella McCarthy, and Alexander McQueen. This takeover solidified its stance as a formidable company against LVMH. With no family drama and money-gulping court cases, the company has continued to grow in leaps and bounds. Today, Gucci has over 50 million Instagram followers who support and buy their new products as soon as they drop. In addition, Gucci has 500 stores across the world in strategic locations, and above all, the line of accessories has been brought back. Do you think it's fair that no direct Gucci descendant is on the board of management? Or do you perhaps think they deserve it for being greedy and losing sight of their grandfather's vision? Let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, do like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next one, and don't forget, there is no end to your dreams because the sky is the limit.